In the spring of 1852, the untamed Texas frontier called to those bold enough to claim it. For William Banta, a rugged guide, leading a team of surveyors deep into uncharted territory, the journey would demand more than skill. It would test his resolve, forge unexpected bonds, and reveal just how wild the land and its people could be.
The clatter of wagon wheels filled the air as William Banta adjusted his rifle outside of Hargrave's modest office. Its sign reading, Surveying and Land Claims, perched against the bustling edge of Austin, Texas. The town, alive with settlers and traders staking their claims, reflected the chaos pulse of the Texas frontier. Inside the office, Hargrave's voice carried firmly. "Thomas, let's ensure everything is accounted for before we depart." Moments later, Hargrave steps out onto the porch, flanked by his surveying crew. Thomas Gaines, calm and seasoned. Charlie Timmons, wiry with a restless energy. And Hank Mason, steady and deliberate as he heaved a crate onto a wagon. From down the street, a rumbling of army wagons drew their attention. Alex Brown's booming command echoed across the bustling of his convoy approached. Upon spotting Will, Alex brought the train to a halt, his wide grin and brash. "Babysitting surveyors now, Banta?" Alex hollered, his voice dripping with humor. Will glanced over his shoulder, the sun catching the brim of his hat. "Babysitting surveyors beats babysitting your crew." The two traded jabs before Alex snapped the reins and rumbled away, leaving behind a cloud of dust and a smirking Charlie Harwick. "Friends in high places, Billy. Might not be as green as you look," Harwick quipped, extending his hand. "It's Will," Banta replied, shaking Harwick's hand firmly but coolly. "Ah, Billy it is then." Hargrave's stern interruption cut through the air. "Enough of that. We leave at noon for the Colorado River, and I expect precision from every single one of you." Thomas gave Will a knowing look as he passed, while Timmons let out a low whistle, grinning as he said it. Boy, this is going to be interesting."
As the group departed, the lively hum of Austin gave way to the expansive silence of the prairie. Will led the way, Rusty's uneven gait tracing the rugged path. Timmons kept spirits high with jokes about imaginary landmarks, drawing laughs and groans in equal measure. By late afternoon, the crew reached their campsite, a sheltered spot by a creek. They worked efficiently to pitch tents and gather firewood as the prairie night began to settle in. Around the fire, the men shared stories of their experiences. Thomas reflected on 2 decades of surveying Texas, his voice steady. Timmons joked about dodging coyotes, nudging Harwick for tales of his own. Harwick's guarded reply lacked conviction, drawing Will's subtle smirk. When the topic turned to Native Americans, Will's tone shifted, the crackling firelight accentuating the weight of his words. "Seen plenty. Some trade with you. Share a campfire. Others." His voice trailed off. "Let's just say I don't leave fires burning too long." The unease hung in the air until Timmons broke the tension with exaggerated bravado, raising his bowl like a toast. "Burnt biscuits might be our best defense." Laughter rippled through the group, though the unease lingered as the men settled into an uneasy sleep beneath the stars. The next morning, they passed through Burnett. Townsfolk lined the streets, curious about the surveyor convoy. A storekeeper jested, "You boys mapping the edge of the world, or just setting it right?" Children giggled as Timmins played captain of the cook wagon, though Harwick's quiet disdain earned sharp glances from Thomas. Will led the convoy past the warmth of the town into the cool shadows of limestone bluffs. Rusty startled at a sudden noise, earning Harwick's jab from the wagon. "Afraid of his own shadow, Billy?" Will muttered under his breath, pressing onward as the towering bluffs framed their trail against the vast frontier. The crew reached Fort Krogan as the sun dipped low, casting shadows over the weathered stone buildings. Soldiers moved with purpose, their uniforms bearing the wear of frontier life. From the barracks emerged a tall man with a salt and pepper mustache, his sharp gaze scanning the group. Captain Ezra McAllister, he introduced himself, extending a firm handshake to Hargrave. "What brings you to Krogan?" "Surveying near the Colorado River," Hargrave replied evenly. "We were hoping to camp here tonight, with your permission." McAllister nodded before his gaze landed on Will, breaking into a broad grin. "Banta. What mischief brings you out here?" "Working, Captain," Will said, his crooked smile hinting at shared history. McAllister laughed heartily. "Surveyors, huh? I suppose even you need steady pay now and then. Boys, take a good look at the man who once out-tracked me to San Antonio." As the surveyors set camp at the fort's edge, soldiers gathered around, whiskey and stories flowing freely by the fire. McAllister recounted frontier adventures, and Timmins spun an exaggerated tale about wrangling a rattlesnake, earning roaring laughter. Even Will joined in, teasing, "Charlie, you've a future as a storyteller, truth optional." Nearby, Harwick sat apart, watching the camaraderie with tight-lipped irritation. The warmth of the evening lightened their spirits, yet the weight of the trail ahead lingered. 3 days later, they neared their destination. The prairie stretched endlessly, the sun low and the air thick with dust. Hargrave assigned Will and Harwick to scout ahead while the others focused on setting landmarks. Riding cautiously, Will's sharp eyes caught subtle signs: disturbed soil, faint moccasin tracks through the brush. Dismounting, he crouched and murmured, "Fresh. We're not alone." Harwick, still mounted, waved dismissively. "Ghosts? Really, Billy?" Will rose, his voice firm. "This isn't nothing, Harwick. Stay sharp." Ignoring the warning, Harwick rode on. Will followed, his instincts on edge. The prairie fell silent, every rustle amplified. Then, faint footsteps broke the stillness. "Get down," Will ordered, yanking Harwick from his horse. Both men hit the ground behind boulders, horses tethered close. Shadows emerged on the horizon, 6 figures, deliberate and steady in their movements. Will clutched his rifle, counting them silently. Harwick, his bravado shaken, stayed low as instructed. The figures moved on, their presence a lingering unease as silence returned. Will exhaled, rising slowly. "Back to camp," he said, his tone brooking no argument. Harwick climbed back into his saddle, his earlier confidence thoroughly eroded. The camp buzzed with quiet activity as the crew reunited at their survey destination. The land stretched wide and untamed before them, twilight bathing the horizon in muted hues. Hargrave stood near the wagon, adjusting his spectacles as he oversaw preparations for the evening. Will and Harwick rode in silently, the weight of their earlier encounter hanging between them. Mason glanced up from the fire. "Find anything up ahead?" "Tracks," Will said, dismounting with practiced ease. 6 of them, on foot. "We kept out of sight." Thomas's gaze shifted toward Harwick, his expression sharp with curiosity. "Close?" "Too close," Will replied, tethering Rusty to a low branch. The horse snorted softly, its unease still lingering. Harwick remained uncharacteristically quiet, his deliberate movements marked by a rare humility. The crew exchanged glances, their unspoken questions trailing Will as he shrugged and sat down by the fire, the conversation left to smolder like the coals. Later, as the fire dwindled and darkness settled across the prairie, Will and Harwick took watch together. The stars shimmered faintly overhead, their dim light barely piercing the vast frontier night. Harwick shifted uncomfortably, the silence pressing on him until he finally spoke. "Billy," he began, then faltered, clearing his throat. Will, guess I owe you one." Harwick's bravado wavered, though his tone still carried a faint edge of self-importance. Will adjusted his hat, his expression calm and unreadable. "You'd have done the same," he said simply. Harwick let out a quiet, self-deprecating chuckle. "Don't bet on it, at least before today." "Today?" That shook me up enough to think differently. "You see, I've been treating this like a game. Like I can talk my way through trouble, just like I could back in town, or even back east. But out here..." His voice dropped. "Out here, I realize I don't know half of what I thought I did." Will studied him for a moment, his tone steady but edged with warning. "Thing is, Charlie, living out here isn't like living in town. Dangers don't care how quick you are with words. A bear, panther, rattlesnake, they'll kill you before you know what hit you. Same goes for Indians, in those situations you can't talk your way out of, only actions do. Heck, even a man with a quick temper and a quicker draw will take you down. But what'll get you fastest is thinking the frontier plays by your rules." Harwick nodded slowly, brushing the brim of his hat. "You think I'm stubborn?" Will smirked faintly. "No, Charlie. I know you're stubborn. It served you well enough back east, but out here, it's gonna get you killed quicker than a panther's claws." Silence stretched between them, the vast prairie pressing in as Harwick gazed up at the stars. "It's not simple, is it? Knowing when to fight, when to listen, and when to shut up long enough to learn something." Will chuckled softly, a rare smile flickering at the edges of his mouth. "No, it's not simple. But it's necessary." Harwick shifted, his usual sharpness dulled by reflection. "Well, I'm still here to learn. Won't say I'll change overnight, but maybe I'll take advice when it matters." Will tipped his hat, his voice calm. "That'd be a good start." The next morning, with spirits high and the survey nearing its end, Will ventured out in search of game. The prairie was quiet, the rustle of brush and distant bird calls the only sounds. Before long, he brought down a young buck, its lifeless form lying across the ground, a rare and welcome bounty. As Will knelt to dress the deer, movement caught his eye. 3 riders approached, their horses moving with an unhurried pace. Will's breath caught, his hand tightening on Rusty's reins. Indians. The thought came sharp and unbidden, bringing to mind the shadows he'd seen days earlier. The riders noticed him, their pace quickening. Without hesitation, Will swung onto Rusty, urging the young horse forward. The added weight of the deer caused Rusty to stumble, but Will pressed on, focusing on one goal, reaching camp alive. Relief washed over him as he rode into the clearing, the riders' laughter carrying on the breeze. Realization dawned, they were white men, not Indians. "If we'd gotten here sooner, we'd have run you off proper," one joked, tipping his hat. "Didn't mean to give you a fright." Around the fire, the crew laughed heartily as Timmons clapped Will on the back. "Now that's what I call excitement." Will shook his head, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "Would have been a mistake," he said evenly as he untethered the deer. "Indians don't leave their game behind." The men introduced themselves as part of the survey's hiring team, sent to ensure progress and offer assistance. Their lightheartedness balanced the earlier tension, and Hargrave eagerly seized the chance to discuss logistics. By midday, the survey was complete. Equipment packed, landmarks marked, and spirits high, the crew prepared for their journey home. Harwick rode alongside Will, his grin sly. "No Indians hiding in the bushes today, huh, Banta?" "They're out there," Charlie, Will replied, amusement flickering in his voice. "Waiting for some unsuspecting schmuck." "Schmuck? Are you calling me a schmuck?" Harwick retorted, feigning offense. Will shrugged, his smirk widening. "If the shoe fits." Harwick laughed, his mood lighter than it had been in days. "Fair enough. But don't let it go to your head. I've still got plenty of arguing left in me." "You wouldn't be Charlie Harwick if you didn't," Will replied easily. As the town's lights flickered on the horizon, Hargrave's voice rang out. "Good work, gentlemen. You've earned this." The crew rode in with laughter and cheer, their bond strengthened by the challenges they'd faced. The frontier remained harsh and unpredictable, but tonight, it brought a sense of fulfillment and camaraderie. Like whispers carried by the prairie wind, some bonds deepen only to be tested by the relentless demands of the frontier. The Texas landscape is more than lines on a map or boundaries etched by surveyors. It is a testament to the determination, hardships, and triumphs of those who dare to embrace its wild spirit. Through his journey, Will Banta found that every step across the rugged terrain held a story of resilience, a reflection of the unwavering dedication of men like Thomas, Charlie, and Hank, who faced danger not just for themselves but for the generations that would carve out their futures on this land. Thank you for following another chapter of Banta's story. As you face the challenges of your own journeys, may you remain steadfast in your beliefs and unwavering in your spirit. The frontier offers no refuge for the hesitant, but for those brave enough to meet it head-on. Triumphs await beyond the horizon,